I never thought I would find myself confiding in strangers about my marriage, but here I am, trying to make sense of the chaos that exploded in my life. Let me set the stage for you. My name is Jake, and I've been married to Lisa for 15 years. We have a beautiful daughter, Emma, who just graduated high school. Suddenly, everything I thought I knew about my life crumbled in front of me at what should have been a joyous occasion. The day of Emma's graduation was supposed to be a celebration. Friends and family gathered at our home to congratulate her. The sun was shining, laughter filled the air, and I felt a profound sense of pride watching my daughter walk across the stage. But underneath this veneer of happiness, things were starting to feel off with Lisa. Over the past few months, she'd become distant, spending more time on her phone and less time engaging with me. I brushed it off. Maybe she was stressed about Emma moving on to college. But as the party went on, I noticed Lisa slipping away with an old high school friend of hers, Mark. At first, I thought nothing of it. They had known each other for years, after all. But as the minutes turned to an hour, I felt a gnawing sense of unease settle in my stomach. I kept glancing toward the door, wondering what could possibly be taking them so long. Everyone else seemed blissfully unaware, too busy celebrating Emma's accomplishments. When they finally re-entered the house, my heart sank. Lisa and Mark looked disheveled. Her hair was a bit tousled, and the flush on her cheeks was more than just from the party. I brushed it off as my imagination. Maybe they had been outside talking about old memories. But the little voice in my head grew louder, and I started to feel the rush of anxiety coursing through me. Later that night, after the guests had left and Emma was tucked into bed, I confronted Lisa. I needed to know what had happened during that hour. I tried to keep my voice steady, but my heart was racing, and I could feel the tension in the air. "Where did you go with Mark?" I asked, trying hard to sound casual. She laughed, a sound that felt wrong. "Oh, Jake, we just went for a walk to catch up, you know how it is." There was something in her tone that didn't sit right with me. I could feel my gut twisting and the anger began to boil beneath the surface. "Lisa, that's not how you come back after an hour away at a party," I pressed, my frustration spilling over. "You look different." She rolled her eyes, that habit of hers that had always annoyed me. "You're being paranoid. We're just old friends. You're making a mountain out of a molehill." But I wasn't convinced. The way she dismissed my concerns only made me more suspicious. I felt like I was losing a grip on reality. The seed of doubt had been planted, and I needed answers. As the days went by, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I started looking for clues, and what I found shattered me. My phone buzzed one afternoon while I was at work, an email alert from a cloud service I didn't recognize. It was a shared folder labeled Special Memories. My heart raced as I opened it, and I saw photos of Lisa and Mark together, some from years ago, but some were more recent, all smiles, arms around each other. The most damning were the photos taken at a bar in our city where they clearly looked intimate. The betrayal hit me hard, like a punch to the gut. I remember feeling a mix of disbelief and anger as I stared at the screen. How could she do this to us, to me? I had always trusted her, and now I felt like a fool. The email was a bombshell, but what came next was even worse. I confronted her with the evidence. The look of shock on her face quickly morphed into anger. "How dare you invade my privacy?" she shouted. "You're such a controlling husband." I had never seen her like this. The woman I loved was so different now, it was like looking at a stranger. I pushed back, demanding the truth. Her excuses were all the same. "It's not what you think, Jake, we were just reminiscing." But I knew better. The emotional weight of betrayal settled heavily on my shoulders. I felt like the ground beneath me had vanished. The woman I had built my life with was hiding a part of herself that I had never known. The confrontation left me shaken, and I realized that I was in deep emotional turmoil. The woman I had trusted, the mother of my child, was lying to me. I was overwhelmed by feelings of anger, sadness, and betrayal. I didn't just want to confront her. I wanted to understand why. Why would she jeopardize everything we had built together for a fleeting moment with a man from her past? The next steps weighed heavily on my mind. My heart ached with confusion, and I found myself questioning everything about our marriage. Would I ever be able to trust her again? I needed to make a decision about how to move forward. As the days passed, I wrestled with my emotions. Part of me wanted to fight for our marriage, to believe that we could work through this. But then again, how could I ever look at her the same way again? The trust had been shattered. I was lost, standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take. I needed clarity, but all I felt was pain from the betrayal. This was just the beginning of what would become a turbulent journey, one that would test my strength and resilience in ways I never anticipated. In the days that followed the confrontation, I felt like I was living in a fog. I went through the motions of my daily life, going to work, taking care of Emma, and pretending everything was normal. But inside, I was a storm of emotions, swirling with anger, sadness, and confusion. Lisa acted as if nothing had happened, treating me with a casualness that only fueled my rage. It felt like a slap in the face every time she smiled at me, as if she was mocking my pain. I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from that graduation party. I thought about how oblivious everyone else had been to the truth. They were celebrating, completely unaware that my marriage was crumbling. It was infuriating to think that everyone else was living in this bubble of happiness while I was wrestling with betrayal and heartbreak. Emma had her own plans after graduation, excited to start college in the fall. I wanted to be supportive, but I couldn't help but feel resentful. It was hard to focus on her accomplishments when my own life felt like it was falling apart. I wanted to be the father she deserved, but every time I looked at her, I was reminded of Lisa's infidelity. One evening, after another tense day of silence between Lisa and me, I gathered the courage to push for a deeper conversation. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but laced with desperation. I needed her to understand the gravity of what she had done. "About what?" she replied, feigning nonchalance as she scrolled through her phone, a habit that had become increasingly frustrating to me. "I thought we were done with the whole Mark discussion." "This isn't just about Mark anymore," I pressed. "This is about us. You can't just pretend everything is fine. You lied to me. You betrayed my trust. We need to figure out what happens next." Her expression shifted slightly, but she quickly masked it with a defensive response. "You're making this a bigger deal than it is." "We had a moment, Jake. It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything," I echoed, incredulous. "It was more than just a moment. You were with him alone for an hour. How can you say it didn't mean anything?" She shot back, her eyes narrowing. "You're being irrational. You're acting like a jealous husband instead of a supportive partner. When I needed you to be there for me, you were." It was as if I was speaking to a wall. I felt anger boiling within me, but I forced myself to remain calm. "I didn't know you needed anything. You've been distant for months. You shut me out. I thought we were a team." Her response was a roll of her eyes, and I felt as if my heart shattered a little more. Lisa had always been the strong one, the confident one in our relationship. But that confidence, it seemed, had morphed into entitlement, leaving me feeling small and powerless. I decided to take a different approach. I wanted to understand her motivations behind the affair. "What's going on with you, Lisa? Why would you do this? What are you feeling?" She hesitated, and for a moment I thought I caught a glimpse of vulnerability in her eyes. But then the mask slipped back on. "I was just reminiscing, okay? Mark is an old friend." "I didn't think it would bother you so much." "Not think it would bother me," I shot back. "It's not just about you and Mark anymore, it's about our family. I deserve honesty, and you've taken that from me." As we continued to argue, I felt like I was losing her. The woman I had married, the woman I loved, was slipping away, and I was terrified. I had to make a choice: either fight for my family or let this all fall apart. That night, I found myself scrolling through my phone, searching for answers. I stumbled upon online forums filled with stories of infidelity and heartbreak. As I read the accounts of others who had experienced similar betrayals, I felt a strange sense of camaraderie with these strangers. They had been through the fire, just like me. I found stories of people who had fought through their pain and come out stronger, but I also read about those who had walked away from relationships that could never heal. I started to think about my own future. Did I want to continue fighting for a marriage that seemed so fragile? Would Lisa even want to reconcile after what she had done? A few days later, I decided to confront her again, but this time, I wanted to do it differently. I wanted to approach the topic with a calm demeanor, focusing on what we could do to move forward rather than getting lost in the blame game. "Let's go to therapy," I suggested one evening, hoping that a neutral third party could help us navigate this minefield of emotions. "I think we need it if we want to salvage this relationship." Lisa paused, her expression shifting from defiance to something resembling contemplation. "Therapy? Really?" "Yes, really, we can't keep going like this. I think it could help us communicate better. We need to understand each other's feelings." She sighed, the tension palpable between us. "Fine, I'll consider it, but you have to promise me you'll stop bringing up Mark every 5 minutes." I nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope. Maybe therapy would help us find a way back to each other. Maybe we could rebuild the trust that had been shattered. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that the road ahead would be long and fraught with pain. As I lay in bed that night, I thought about what I had learned from this experience. Trust, once broken, is hard to repair. Lisa's betrayal had torn a hole in the fabric of our marriage, and it would take time to mend. I was on a journey now, one that would test my resilience and reshape my understanding of love and commitment. Though the horizon looked bleak, part of me was determined to fight. I owed it to Emma, and I owed it to myself. Whatever happened next, I needed to prepare for the emotional roller coaster ahead. The next few days felt like an endless loop of tension and uncertainty in our home. I could hear the faint sounds of Emma practicing her graduation speech in her room, and it was a stark reminder of the joy that had been overshadowed by Lisa's betrayal. I often found myself torn between wanting to support Emma and dealing with the emotional fallout of my crumbling marriage. Eventually, we scheduled our first therapy session. I was nervous but hopeful. I believed that if we could lay everything bare in a safe space, it might be the catalyst we needed to heal. Lisa seemed ambivalent still, acting as if she was reluctantly going along with my plan. I could see her internal struggle. Part of her seemed willing to explore the depths of her feelings, while another part was defensive and unwilling to admit she had done anything wrong. As we sat in the therapist's office, I felt my heart racing. The room was cozy, filled with warm colors and soft lighting, but it felt like a pressure cooker. I glanced at Lisa, who was avoiding eye contact. The therapist, a kind-looking woman named Dr. Mitchell, began by asking us to share our thoughts and feelings. "Let's start with the recent events," Dr. Mitchell suggested gently. "Jake, why don't you tell us how you've been feeling about what happened?" I took a deep breath. "I feel betrayed, hurt, and confused. I thought I knew Lisa completely, and then I find out that she was with Mark. I can't wrap my head around why she would risk everything we built." Lisa cut in, her voice tight. "It wasn't like that. It was just a moment of weakness. We were talking and things got out of hand. No one else was supposed to find out." Dr. Mitchell continued to guide us through our feelings, but it became clear that Lisa was still largely focused on defending herself rather than acknowledging the pain she had caused. Whenever I tried to express my hurt, she'd deflect, claiming I was making a mountain out of a molehill. I wanted to scream, to shake her and make her understand that this wasn't a small issue. It was a fracture in our foundation. After an hour of back and forth, I was exhausted. I looked at Lisa, who seemed more frustrated than ever. "You don't get it, do you? I can't just pretend everything is okay. You have to understand what you've done." Lisa's eyes narrowed, and I could see the anger bubbling beneath the surface. "And I'm telling you it was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen. You're acting like I planned this whole thing out." "Maybe you didn't plan it, but you went along with it," I said, my voice growing louder. "That's what hurts so much." Dr. Mitchell intervened, reminding us to focus on feelings rather than blame. But as the session wore on, I felt like we were stuck in a loop. Lisa was still unwilling to take responsibility, and I was left grappling with my pain while she remained defensive. The therapy session ended without any real resolution, but I left with my heart feeling heavier than before. Over the next few sessions, I tried to remain open, hoping that Lisa would begin to understand the impact of her actions. But each time we sat down with Dr. Mitchell, it felt increasingly like an uphill battle. Lisa was frustratingly adept at sidestepping difficult conversations, and I began to wonder if she truly understood the depth of my hurt. One evening, after another tense session, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I needed to do something to make her see the gravity of our situation. I gathered my thoughts and confronted her again, determined to bridge the gap that seemed to be widening between us. Lisa, we can't keep going like this. I need you to be honest with me about how you feel. If you don't want to work on this marriage, just say it, I said, my voice steady but filled with urgency. She looked at me, her face a mask of frustration. I want to work on it, Jake, but you keep bringing up the past. It wasn't just about me and Mark. It was about me feeling neglected and alone in our marriage. This was the first time she had admitted to anything resembling vulnerability, but her words also felt like a diversion. What do you mean, neglected? I asked, wanting to understand her perspective. Look, in the last couple of years, you've been so focused on work and Emma's future that I felt invisible. I tried to talk to you about it, but you never seemed to listen. I was lonely. The admission stung. I had been so preoccupied with supporting Emma and holding down my job that I hadn't noticed Lisa slipping away, but that didn't excuse her actions. So you thought cheating was the solution? I replied, exasperated. That doesn't make any sense. I didn't think it would go that far, she snapped. I thought it was harmless, just talking to an old friend. It felt like we were talking in circles. I wanted to scream that nothing about infidelity was harmless, that it was a betrayal of the highest order. But instead, I took a deep breath and attempted to remain calm. Look, I understand you felt lonely, but we could have worked on that together. You didn't have to go outside our marriage. I didn't know how to talk to you anymore, Jake, she shouted, her defenses rising again. You were always wrapped up in your own world. I paused, realizing that the fight wasn't going to solve anything. Then let's find a way to communicate better. Let's go back to therapy and really dig into this. Lisa crossed her arms, her expression hardening again. Fine, but you need to stop playing the victim. It takes two to create a problem. You have to acknowledge your role in this too. With those words hanging in the air, I felt the weight of our reality. It was true. We each played a part in the deterioration of our relationship. But the disparity in our willingness to address these issues felt monumental. That night, I lay in bed feeling defeated. I had wanted clarity, but instead, I felt more lost than ever. I knew I had to address my own shortcomings in the marriage, but how could I do that when I was still reeling from her betrayal? As I tossed and turned, I realized I needed to take control of my emotions. I couldn't let Lisa's actions dictate my self-worth. I decided to start journaling my feelings, a way to process the storm inside me. I wanted to be honest about my pain, my frustrations, and my fears. With a pen in hand, I poured out my heart onto the pages, reflecting on the past, my relationship with Lisa, and the future I envisioned for myself. I wrote about my desire to rebuild trust, but I also acknowledged that I was walking a tightrope. One misstep, and I could fall into the abyss of heartbreak once more. I had to be prepared for whatever lay ahead. The road was going to be long, and I was uncertain of Lisa's commitment to truly working on our marriage. But I knew that I owed it to myself to fight for what I wanted. And if that meant facing the harsh truths of our relationship head-on, so be it. I steeled myself for the difficult conversations still to come, knowing that I had a choice. I could either allow this betrayal to define me or emerge from this struggle stronger and wiser. And maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to navigate the wreckage together. The weeks dragged on, each day feeling like a trial. Lisa and I continued to attend therapy, but each session was a mixed bag of progress and setbacks. I was trying to be open, ready to address my own shortcomings, but every time we sat down with Dr. Mitchell, I was reminded of the wound Lisa had inflicted on our marriage. During one of our sessions, Dr. Mitchell posed a question that struck me to my core. What do you both want out of this therapy? What is your end goal? I looked at Lisa, who seemed contemplative. I want to restore our marriage, I said, my voice steady. But I also want us to be honest about what we need from each other moving forward. Lisa nodded, but there was something guarded in her expression. I want to feel connected again, she added, her voice quieter than usual. I want us to work through this, but I also want you to understand that I'm not the only one at fault. Here, I felt a pang of frustration but reminded myself to stay calm. I get that, but we can't use that as an excuse for what happened. I want to know that you're committed to rebuilding trust, are you? Her gaze faltered for a moment and I could see the struggle beneath the surface. "I am," she said finally. "But I need to feel that you're also committed to being more present, Jake. I need you to see me, not just as a mother or a partner, but as myself." The words hit home. I had been so focused on Emma and our responsibilities that I had neglected Lisa as an individual. I realized that my own feelings of betrayal were blinding me to the fact that she had been hurting long before the affair. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but it was something I needed to acknowledge if we were going to move forward. That night, I took a long walk to clear my head. The streets were quiet, and the cool air helped soothe the tension that had been building inside me. I thought about Lisa's words, her need for connection, and the realization that I had been caught up in my own pain to the point where I had failed to see her struggles. When I returned home, I found Lisa in the living room scrolling through her phone. I approached her cautiously, wanting to open the door to a conversation. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice softer than it had been during our sessions. "About what?" she replied, not looking up from her screen. I took a deep breath. "About us. I've been thinking about what you said in therapy. I know I haven't been the best husband. I've been so focused on my own hurt that I haven't really listened to you." She finally looked at me, surprise flashing across her face. "Really? You mean it?" "Yes, I do. I want to understand what you need from me, and I want to work on being more present. I don't want to lose you." There was a long pause as she processed my words. "I appreciate that, Jake. It's hard for me too. I feel like I've lost myself in all of this." "I get it. I've been so angry that I forgot to ask you how you're feeling. I want to help you to get us back on track," I said earnestly, "but it's going to take both of us being vulnerable." Lisa nodded slowly, and for the first time in what felt like ages, we connected in a moment of shared understanding. "I know I messed up and I regret what happened," she admitted, "but I also need to know you're willing to meet me halfway." "I am," I assured her. "We can rebuild, but it's going to require work from both of us." We spent the next few hours in deep conversation, discussing our feelings, our needs, and what we could do differently. It was cathartic and raw, and I felt a flicker of hope for the first time in weeks. We talked about our relationship before the affair, how we had once been partners in every sense, and how we had drifted apart over the years. As the night wore on, we began to explore some of the small things that had slipped through the cracks of our busy lives. We decided to start date nights again, to prioritize time for each other without distractions. We also talked about being more open and honest about our emotions, even when it was uncomfortable. In the days that followed, I made a conscious effort to apply what we discussed. I carved out time for us to connect, whether it was cooking dinner together or simply watching a movie. I wanted to show Lisa that I was committed to making this work. But then came the moment of truth when Lisa surprised me with an unexpected invitation. I was thinking we should host a small gathering for Emma and her friends to celebrate her graduation, she suggested one evening, just to bring everyone together and lift the mood. I hesitated. The thought of inviting people over seemed daunting given the fragility of our situation. "Are you sure that's a good idea? I mean, with everything that's happened." "I know it sounds crazy, but I think it could help us," she replied. "We can show everyone that we're working on our marriage. Plus, it might help Emma feel supported as she transitions to college." I agreed, seeing the logic in her reasoning, and so we planned a small gathering, inviting close friends and family who could remain supportive without prying too deeply into our personal lives. As the day approached, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. I wanted our home to feel like a sanctuary, a place where we could start to rebuild our relationship and show our daughter that we were still united. When the day of the gathering arrived, I found myself swept up in the preparations. Lisa and I moved through the house in a coordinated dance, setting up food and drinks while joking and reminiscing about our early days together. It felt good to be laughing again, to experience a sense of normalcy, even if just for a moment. As guests began to arrive, I could see the surprise on their faces at our renewed energy. I felt a sense of pride as I introduced Emma to her friends, watching her beam with happiness. Lisa moved through the crowd effortlessly, chatting and laughing, and I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope for us amidst the chaos. But as the night wore on, I caught sight of Mark across the room, engaging in conversation with a couple of our friends. My heart raced as I felt a sense of unease creeping back in. The temptation to confront him was strong, but I reminded myself that this was about Emma and our effort to reconnect, not about confronting the past. Yet, as the evening progressed, I couldn't shake the feeling of discomfort. Every laugh I heard, every smile exchanged, felt like a reminder of the betrayal that had once occurred. I caught Lisa glancing in Mark's direction a few times, and it made my stomach churn. Later in the evening, during a quiet moment in the kitchen, Lisa approached me. "Are you okay?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. I hesitated before speaking. I don't want to feel like I'm constantly looking over my shoulder. Seeing Mark here is hard for me." She nodded, her expression softening. "I understand. I promise I'll handle it. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable." I appreciated her reassurance, but it didn't completely ease the knot in my stomach. I wanted to believe that we could get through this, but the shadow of her affair still loomed large. As the night continued and laughter filled the room, I realized that I had two choices. I could either dwell on my insecurities or focus on the efforts we were making to heal. I chose the latter. I wanted to give us a fair shot at rebuilding our relationship, especially for Emma's sake. When the gathering finally came to an end and our friends began to leave, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. We had made it through the night relatively unscathed, and Lisa seemed genuinely happy. As I helped her clean up, I realized that we had taken a step forward. We had faced the uncomfortable reality of our situation, and while the road ahead was uncertain, we were willing to walk it together. In those moments, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. We were still far from where we needed to be, but with each small step forward, perhaps we could find our way back to each other. And perhaps, just perhaps, we could emerge from this stronger than before. As the weeks rolled into months, Lisa and I continued our journey through therapy, and our commitment to each other began to bear fruit. The gathering for Emma had been a turning point, a moment where we'd shown the world and ourselves that we were willing to put in the effort to heal. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. In therapy, we began to peel away the layers of resentment and hurt. With Dr. Mitchell's guidance, we explored the roots of our issues, addressing not only the infidelity but also the years of neglect that had led us there. I started to understand that Lisa's loneliness had been painful for her, and though I hadn't recognized it, I had contributed to that isolation by not being as present as I should have been. One evening, after a particularly enlightening session, I sat down at the kitchen table with Lisa. The atmosphere was charged with a sense of possibility. "I've been thinking," I said, "maybe we should start doing something together that we both enjoy, something just for us. Remember how we used to enjoy hiking?" Lisa's eyes lit up. "I do. It's been ages since we've gone out for a hike together. Let's make it a regular thing," I suggested, feeling a surge of enthusiasm. "Just one day a week where we can disconnect from everything and reconnect with each other." She smiled, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a genuine warmth between us. "I'd love that, Jake. It sounds like a great way to reconnect." We spent the next few days planning our first hike, choosing a scenic trail not too far from home. The anticipation felt electric, and I could see the excitement mirrored in Lisa's eyes as we prepared. It was a small step, but it felt monumental in the grand scheme of our rebuilding process. On the day of our hike, we woke up early. The weather was perfect, sunny with a slight breeze. We packed a small picnic and set off, eager to escape the noise of everyday life. As we walked, I could feel the tension easing between us, the air filled with laughter and shared memories. "Remember the time we got lost on that trail and ended up hiking for miles?" Lisa teased, her laughter infectious. I chuckled, nodding. "Yeah, I thought we were going to be stuck in the woods forever, but that turned out to be one of the best adventures we had." The conversation flowed easily, and it felt as though we were rediscovering each other piece by piece. We hiked for hours, surrounded by the beauty of nature, and for the first time in a long while I felt at ease. The worries that had plagued me began to fade into the background as we shared stories and dreams for the future. When we found a beautiful spot overlooking a valley, we settled down to enjoy our picnic. As I watched Lisa take in the view, something shifted inside me. I remembered how much I loved her spirit, how vibrant she could be. I wanted to fight for that spark, for the woman I fell in love with years ago. Lisa, I said, my voice serious, I want you to know how much I appreciate you doing this with me. It's really helping me see you again, and I hope you feel it too. She turned to me, her expression softening. I do, Jake. I feel like I'm finally starting to see you again too. It's been hard to let go of the past, but moments like this make me hopeful for the future. We spent the rest of the day talking, laughing, and reminiscing. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over everything, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We weren't fixed, but we were healing, and that was enough for now. Yet just when I thought we were finding our footing, the past reared its ugly head once more. A few days after our hike, I received a text message that sent my heart into a tailspin. It was from Mark, and it simply read, "Hey, just wanted to check in. Hope you're both doing well." My first instinct was to show Lisa, but I hesitated. I didn't want to disrupt the progress we'd made, but the tight knot in my stomach wouldn't let me ignore it. I finally decided to tell her, hoping it wouldn't trigger the old wounds. "Lisa, I got a message from Mark today," I said cautiously, sitting down beside her on the couch. She looked up, surprise etched on her face. "Mark, why is he texting you?" "I don't know, just checking in, I guess." I didn't respond. Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment I saw the tension return. "Are you going to respond?" "I don't think so, I just wanted you to know." Lisa took a deep breath, visibly shaken. "Do you think he's trying to reach out again, to stir things up?" "I don't know, but I promise I won't engage with him. I'm not interested in that," I assured her, though doubt crept into my mind. We spent the rest of the evening in an awkward silence, and I could feel the distance creeping back in between us. I hated that Mark had the power to disrupt our progress, but I reminded myself that we had come so far, and I was determined not to let him ruin what we had built. The next day, I made a point to reach out to Lisa again. "Let's not let outside influences derail us," I said firmly. "We're doing well, and we can handle this together." "Yeah, you're right," she agreed reluctantly. "I just didn't want to have to deal with him again. I thought we were moving past all of this." "We are. We just need to stay strong and not lose sight of each other," I said, taking her hand in mine. Over the next few weeks, we focused on nurturing our bond. We continued our weekly hikes, and slowly but surely, the laughter returned to our home. We made a point to reconnect in ways that had once brought us joy, whether it was cooking together or going out for spontaneous date nights. I started to see Lisa not just as my wife, but as a partner I wanted to grow alongside. I was learning to appreciate her individuality, her quirks, and the little things that made her who she was. I wanted to show her that I could be a better husband, that I would listen and be present. As we made progress, I also started to see the changes within myself. I was no longer just a victim of betrayal. I was a man willing to confront my own shortcomings. I was learning to communicate openly about my feelings, to voice my needs without fear of judgment. Then came the moment of reckoning. One evening, as we sat together on the couch watching TV, Lisa turned to me, her expression serious. "Jake, I think we need to talk about Mark." I felt my heart race. "What about him?" "I know I've said before that I'm not interested in that part of my life anymore, but I think it's important that I fully sever ties with him. I need to make it clear to him that I'm committed to our marriage." I nodded, appreciating her willingness to confront the past. "I agree. It's important for both of us to feel secure. I don't want him to have any hold on our relationship." "I'll text him," she said, determination in her voice. "I'll let him know that our marriage is my priority." The thought of her reaching out to Mark filled me with a mixture of fear and support. I wanted her to take this step for herself, but I also knew it could come with its own challenges. "I'm here for you," I reassured her. "I'll support you no matter how you choose to handle it." The next day, Lisa sent the message, and though the moment felt heavy, I could see a glimmer of relief on her face afterward. "I did it," she said, a mix of triumph and vulnerability in her voice. "I let him know I'm done with that part of my life." "Good," I replied, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "I'm proud of you." As the weeks continued to unfold, I sensed a shift in our relationship dynamic. We were no longer just trying to navigate the pain of betrayal. We were actively working on building a future together. Our conversations deepened, and we began to share our hopes and dreams more freely. but there were still moments when the shadows of the past threatened to creep back in. I would sometimes catch myself feeling anxious, wondering if Lisa would slip back into old patterns or if Mark would resurface. But I realized that I had to trust her just as she had to trust me. One evening, as the two of us sat outside on the porch, I turned to her. "You know, I've been thinking about how far we've come. We're both growing and changing, and I believe we can emerge from this stronger." Lisa smiled softly. "I believe that too. I know it hasn't been easy, but I'm willing to fight for us." In that moment, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for her courage and resilience. I knew that while the scars of betrayal might never fully fade, they could serve as reminders of the strength we had found together. And as we sat beneath the stars, I realized that we were writing a new chapter in our story, one defined not by betrayal, but by redemption, growth, and a renewed commitment to each other. Whatever the future held, I was ready to face it, hand in hand with the woman I still loved, determined to create a new beginning for our family. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. Would we be able to hold on to this newfound strength and trust, or would something else come to test us again? Only time would tell, but for now, I felt hopeful, ready to embrace the journey ahead. As the weeks turned into months, Lisa and I continued to approach our marriage with cautious optimism. The act of sending that message to Mark had been a turning point, not just for her but for me as well. It was a sign that she was committed to our relationship, and it renewed my faith that we could navigate this turbulent time together. Life settled into a rhythm, one where we were actively engaged in each other's lives. Our date nights became something we both looked forward to, and our weekly hikes turned into a cherished tradition. Each trek into nature deepened our connection, allowing us to shed the burdens of the past and focus on the present. Yet, the feeling of vulnerability lingered beneath the surface. While Lisa had severed ties with Mark, the echoes of her betrayal still haunted me. I often found myself grappling with moments of insecurity, questioning whether I could fully trust her again. It was a battle within my own mind, knowing she had taken steps to rebuild our trust while struggling to quell the doubts that crept in uninvited. One evening, while we prepared dinner together, I decided to voice my feelings. "You know, Lisa, I appreciate everything you've done to make this work. I really do," I began, stirring the sauce on the stove. "But I still have moments when I feel anxious about us." Her expression softened and she turned to face me. "I get that. I can't expect everything to go back to normal overnight. Trust takes time to rebuild, and I want you to know that I'm here for you." I nodded, grateful for her understanding. "I know we're making progress, but I still sometimes feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't want to be stuck in that place." "I don't want you to feel that way," she said softly. "You deserve to feel secure in our marriage. Let's keep talking about this. We can work through it together." That open line of communication became a cornerstone of our healing process. We began to have deeper conversations about our fears and vulnerabilities, and as we did, the walls between us started to fade. I realized that sharing my insecurities only served to strengthen our bond. It was a move toward transparency and intimacy that had been missing for far too long. As summer turned to fall, we began to plan for Emma's transition to college. Watching her grow was bittersweet. She was ready to spread her wings, and I felt proud of her. Yet it also served as a reminder of how quickly time had passed and how precious every moment was. I wanted to ensure that as Emma stepped into this new chapter, Lisa and I would also step forward into a new and healthier phase of our relationship. One evening, as we packed up Emma's things for her move, I caught a glimpse of the joy and excitement on her face. "I'm really going to miss you guys," she said, her voice laced with a mix of eagerness and nostalgia. "Just remember, we're only a phone call away," I replied, pulling her into a tight hug. "We'll always be here for you." "Yeah, and we'll come visit," Lisa added, her eyes bright. "We'll make it a family tradition." With the move approaching, I felt a surge of hope for our family. We were all starting to find our footing in new ways. Once the day came for Emma to leave, we packed up the car and set off to her new college. The drive was filled with laughter and light-hearted banter, a stark contrast to the tension that had once defined our home. When we arrived on campus, It felt surreal. Emma was buzzing with excitement as we unloaded her things, sharing stories with her new roommate and taking in the surroundings. I couldn't help but marvel at how far we had all come. The chaos of the past felt like a distant memory, replaced by the promise of a bright future. After settling Emma into her dorm, Lisa and I walked back to the car, hand in hand. "We did it," I said, looking over at her. "We've made it through some tough times, and I think we're better for it." She smiled, her eyes sparkling with appreciation. "I feel the same way. I can't say it's been easy, but I truly believe this journey has brought us closer." As we drove home, I reflected on everything we had been through, the pain, the healing, and the growth. I recognized that life was never going to be perfect, but I was willing to embrace the imperfections. I had learned that true love means facing challenges together and coming out stronger on the other side. That evening, as we settled on the couch side by side, I felt a sense of peace enveloping us. The house felt different. It was filled with warmth and hope. "I love you, Lisa," I said, turning to her, my heart full. "I love you too, Jake," she replied, her voice steady and sincere. "Thank you for standing by me, for being willing to fight for us." In that moment, I knew we had reached a new chapter in our relationship. It wouldn't always be easy, but we were committed to each other. The road ahead may still have its bumps, but we were ready to face whatever came our way together. As I reflected on everything that had happened, I realized that this experience had taught me invaluable lessons about trust, communication, and resilience. I had learned to confront my insecurities and to embrace vulnerability. I had also learned that love, true love, is not just about the highs. It's about working through the lows together. And so, we continued on our journey, hand in hand, ready to embrace the future, whatever it may hold.